What's up, everybody? Going on 2 weeks with no internet around here. So I don't know if they're ever going to get it fixed. But there's still a lot of cool stuff that I hadn't got to in this book. So I'm going to keep on keeping on. Got to stay entertained somehow. I can't zone out on any videos. So I hope I'm not boring you guys to tears out there. If you do want to check out some cool artwork, that's one of the main things I'd do differently here if I could. Look up Nicholas Roerich and his paintings. Roerich was a famous mystic from late 1800s, early 1900s, and he's pretty much the only Westerner to actually go into deep Tibet. And his expedition was really interesting. I'd probably do a video about that sometime. But they took literal camel trains back into Tibet. Another thing you can look up is the Gobi Desert and that region up in Tibet of just remote out there. But Rourke took like literally tons of canvases stacked up on camels and made a series of paintings on their expedition. And they go from pretty mountain landscapes to glowing boxes inside of caves. So if you want to look at some pretty pictures, you can do that while you're listening to this. Or if you want to read along, I got you covered. Might be hard though, because I'm going to do a lot of skipping around just for the good parts. Ancient China has always been this mystical land to me ever since a kid, where you got the kung fu monks and dragons and the immortals that we'll get into, and also the spiritual meditative aspect of things. I mean, have you ever sat down and thought about how crazy it is that they came up with acupuncture and that these common chronic illnesses are due to an energy blockage? That's the kind of stuff you can figure out spending 10 years in a cave meditating. And allegedly even more than that, being able to transport their consciousness to anywhere in the universe. I mean, nowadays the teleporting monk is a trope, so let's talk about where these legends came from. So this has come up quite a bit lately in my videos, but the ancients were obsessed with the heavens, the stars and the planets. Astronomy seems to be the oldest science out there, so the chroniclers of old China had always been extremely accurate in recording astronomical events such as sunspots, nova, and comets. And like I said, I'm going to be skipping through here to keep the ball rolling. Nu and Kua were the Asiatic prototypes of Adam and Eve, and were said to be born in the Kunlun Mountains, which are situated in a desolate region in Central Asia. Why such an odd place was believed to have been the Chinese Garden of Eden is difficult to understand. Perhaps the Gobi Desert was at one time an inland sea surrounded by fertile land. So that area today is a wasteland, but I've talked a lot about how climates and regions have gone through drastic changes very quickly in our past. We'll actually get into what happened in that area here in a little bit. The Kunlun Mountains, whose peaks are covered with glaciers and snow, is considered in Chinese mythology to be the dwelling place of the Immortals, kind of like Mount Olympus. It is ruled over by Zhi Wang Mu, the Queen Mother of the West. Scholars have never been able to explain why their Olympus is located so far from China proper. In Greece, they built Athens right in the shadow of Mount Olympus, but here it's nowhere near the main populated areas, just a few Tibetans and Mongols up there. The 9-storied palace of Zhiwangmu is described as being built of pure jade. It is surrounded by a magnificent garden in which grows the peach tree of immortality, blossoming once in 6,000 years. Only men and women of great virtue and understanding are permitted to eat this marvelous fruit. Music from invisible instruments can be heard in the air, and one can drink the elixir of youth at the fountain of eternal life, in part the storytellers of China. If you didn't know what stereo speakers were, that would seem pretty miraculous, where normally if you want to hear music, there's got to be musicians around. And in my opinion, some of the best evidence out here that I've heard for lost ancient technology is coming out of Tibet right here. I'm not sure we'll get into it in this video, but apparently an ancient advanced culture was trying to escape a cataclysm and went up there and set up shop. There's some descriptions of geothermal valleys, but also underground tunnel networks and the literal city of Shambhala underground. And they even talk about the strange lights that make the plants grow. There exists a beautiful valley in this mountain ridge completely protected from the cold winds. For him who reaches the valley of the goddess, the wheel of rebirth stops and he enters nirvana. Ji Wang Mu is also called Kuan Yin, the goddess of mercy, and is often depicted in China and Japan with 1,000 arms and 1,000 eyes to symbolize her desire to help humanity. Boy, there's a difference in culture, because if I saw something with 1,000 arms and 1,000 eyes, I probably wouldn't think it's here to help. So there's a lot of names for this goddess who looks upon the world. The attendants of Ji Wang Mu possess perfect bodies which can no longer age or die. These beings are very wise and powerful and assist the Golden Mother in her humanitarian activities. The Immortals are supposed to command the ability to travel at will throughout the universe, from one world to another, and even live on faraway stars. That's an amazing concept to find in antiquity, either the idea of space travel or being able to project one's mind to a distant star. Even in Islam, Iblis, who went on to become Satan, the Shaitan, was said to have worshipped Allah from every star in the sky. The Dogon peoples say that they came from, Sirius B, a small binary star that wasn't discovered by Western scientists till the 1950s or something. Now check this out. This is good. This is something that I've theorized in the past. Part of this, anyway. The Celestial Empire described the legendary epoch of the Sons of Heaven, who came as benevolent culture bearers in the third millennium before our era. Strange astronomical phenomena occurred at that time. For instance, the fall of an enormous star on the island of Blossoms, which the Soviet philologist Lisevich places in the Gobi Desert. I did a video a while back saying, look, this place got hit. This is a cosmic impact site. Now I've actually got that in writing, so you'll probably be hearing a lot more about that. But the Chinese here are talking about the sons of heaven coming down, and this is the story of the Yellow Emperor who came from the heavens. And this is an age where the gods lived among men. The Greek gods, the Sumerian tablets, the fallen angels. All cultures have a story of these gods. Now, I can't tell you who or what they were, but it's pretty apparent when every culture says the same thing that something's going on. The Russian scholar interprets the myth as an actual descent of a spaceship with cosmic civilizers. The great Lao Tzu, who authored the Tao Te Ching and the basis of Taoist philosophy, is professed to have left central China at the close of his very long life and journeyed to the land of Ji Wang Mu. There's still numerous statues depicting him on the back of a buffalo, and no one knows where or when he stopped living. That was around 604 BC. Around 1000 BC, Emperor Mu is said to have had an actual audience with the mother Ji Wang Mu on the bank of Jasper Lake in the Kunlun Ridge. Now look, an emperor doesn't throw on a backpack and take off out into the mountains by himself. Him and his whole entourage went up into these mountains. And these are people that wouldn't even conceive of dishonoring themselves enough to lie about something like this. So I'd say that they met with someone. Another chronicle records the sudden appearance of the goddess in the palace of Emperor Wu Ti of the Han Dynasty around 140-100 BC. So that's 3 high-profile meetings over the course of 1,000 years. The Sumerian tablets talk about beings that live for hundreds of thousands of years. So we hear about Enki and Enlil and beings like that are ancient history. If they were ever alive in the first place, then they probably still are alive. That'd be like meeting any regular human 2 weeks ago. Odds are they're probably still alive, but they're apparently not here anymore, at least not on the surface. Ko Yuan, a Taoist scholar of the 3rd century, insisted that secret knowledge had never been available to the curious among the learned men of this lower world. He said that one had to rise above the earth to understand the teaching, and he was quite definite about the source of the Taoist science. It had come from the realm of the goddess mother of the West. If you want to feel like a clueless bald monkey, go look up some of the Tao sayings. I understand a little bit about every 1 out of 10 of those, but there's really no way around it. Every culture that has held on to its myths and part of their understanding says that we were taught by some superior beings. In China, the Yellow Emperor created the first civilization. Quetzalcoatl taught the Aztecs, Viracocha taught the Inca, Prometheus. I mean, every culture says that somebody taught us how to live a civilized life. And they've apparently been gone for quite a while. If they were seeing one of these beings in 100 BC, that's a couple thousand years past all the other gods. I know the timelines are off, but there's supposed to be quite a few lamas that have met with these guys and been to Shambhala even. And Nicholas Rourke and his expedition might have made it there, which we'll talk more about in a bit. Me and Ruckus went and panhandled some internet up on the hill. This is the area we're talking about, and to me it looks like a continent-size impact event. The Kunlun Mountains are right down about here, and I mean, this is the place, the cradle of civilization, the Chinese Garden of Eden. Most of this area is higher than the highest mountains in America, too. So it's really rough, inhospitable terrain. The people of China proper live way down here, thousands of miles away. So if you were an immortal being wanting to be left alone, this would be a great place for it. There's not even any modern flights that go over that area. I could see something coming in from over here and crashing down right here. The ground just being liquefied and mountains literally flowing out in that direction. And it even spills back over into Pakistan, Afghanistan over here. And I bet that that's an ancient lake there, and that's about 500 miles wide. So billions of gallons of water would help carve everything out and move mountains around. And that could have shoved into northern India and formed the Himalayas. They say it's India running into Mongolia. And this area here has just always looked to me like it spilled over from up above. And then from there, you've got all of the main rivers of China flowing out to the sea. But it could just be giant lake, earthquake, and the banks give out. But if they still have a story saying that a star fell right there, then I'm thinking that's what happened. Modern scholars, write it off as fanciful thinking, but these guys knew what they were talking about. So these guys have been coming up quite a bit lately. The archives of the Vatican contain a considerable number of precise reports of Catholic missionaries in the past 150 years about the mysterious deputations from the emperors of China to the spirit of the mountains. These beings were usually described to be clad in visible solid bodies at which the same time were not flesh and blood. The Indian scriptures speak of the powers to become heavier and denser or lighter and more ethereal, which divine beings enjoy. Have you guys ever seen the tiny 100-pound woman that hold onto a stick and two big burly guys can't push her over? That's supposed to be this. But in the past couple hundred years since the Church of Rome has set up shop in China, the emperor has sent delegations out to these beings numerous times. This was also mentioned by Bishop Delaplace 100 years ago. In years of great crisis, they'd send an envoy up to talk to these beings. A couple more delegations that went up there, but a census for the year AD 2 shows a population of 60 million people living there. Which that's a lot, but I think that's only like 10% of what live there now. The Taoists have a belief in Tibu land, the most beautiful country in the world, which hides between snowy ridges and valleys with streams and waterfalls. And these immortals live with 1 foot in our world and 1 foot in the spiritual world, which tells you a little bit about our physical reality. If they are able to shift between the spiritual and physical world at will, then that would imply that the spiritual world isn't in a different geographical location. It's just on a different plane. We're only able to observe a very small section of the electromagnetic spectrum that is visible light. But we have ways of detecting infrared light, ultraviolet. So we know these things exist, but we don't have anything that can detect the spiritual world. Yet ghost stories are probably as old as humanity. People claim to summon demons. People get possessed by demons, and I believe all of this stuff is true. There's even rumors that in Vietnam they were trying a type of night vision goggles that they gave pilots to use, and they claim to have seen the demon world all around them. It allegedly drove several pilots insane, they offed themselves, but we don't have a concrete method known to the public to where we can observe this. Yet, all throughout history, people have claimed to come into contact with the spiritual world right here in the same physical location. So, if demons and disembodied spirits can somehow bridge that gap and appear to us in the physical world, then it would only make sense that holy men can do the same thing, or holy spirits. One thing that I heard a while back that I found really interesting is the Dalai Lama is supposed to be the same spirit reincarnated into different bodies over and over again. So when a Dalai Lama passes on, they have these methods they use to find his spirit in the new body, which has been incredibly corrupted since the double CP took over that area. But after a Dalai Lama passes on, then they go out and search all of the children that were born in the right time frame, and they find the same spirit that has been all of the Dalai Lamas since like the 1400s in his new body. But they only search the same geographical region, Tibet and Mongolia, which would imply that you reincarnate in close geographical proximity to the point that you passed on from. That would imply that you don't go off to some distant heaven or hell, and that you're still here in the same basic location waiting to pick up your new meat suit. Now, all of this advanced spiritual knowledge might have been taught to us by beings from a higher spiritual plane than us. Like the Mother Goddess may have come down from a higher dimension to help us with our troubles here. But they also say that this secret place is inhabited by beings who were formerly ordinary men and women. They reached the secret land because of their spiritual progression. What's more is this can be attained by a worthy seeker after truth who is devoid of selfish motives. So they say that only the most advanced, spiritually advanced humans are even allowed to find this land of the Immortals or Shambhala. And even that if you're at a certain level of attainment, then you are called to that place. The philosophy of cosmic evolution, of the ceaseless rise of intelligence and consciousness in the infinite universe, creates a picture of an hierarchical ladder of superhuman life systems. Its realization should implant a sense of responsibility to lower forms of life. They say over and over that these immortals are here to help us. And I look at it a lot like anybody out there who really loves their pets. Like I love Ruckus to death, but I don't expect him to know how to drive the truck to work or to actually help me when I go to work. But I like having him around. And as long as he's not chewing up the extension cords or getting in fights with the neighbor's dogs, then I pretty well let him do what he wants, just for the sake of him being happy and having a good day. He has a certain level of emotional intelligence. It's easy to tell if he's happy or sad or angry. And if he's sad or angry, then I try to help him out, Well, that's basically the way I would view a relationship between a higher being and humans. We've got plenty of faults, but we've also got our good side to us. We can be really sweet and loving to each other. So as long as we're not pointing cannons at each other, they probably just kind of have the attitude of, well, let them live and let learn. This is all part of the cosmic evolution process. The Buddhist idea of life is that you start out as lower life forms, like all the way down to the insect kingdom and then up through the animal kingdom. And then the highest form of life we commonly understand is becoming a human. Less commonly known are these beings that can manifest in physical or light bodies that are a step above your average human. These air rats, the holy beings, regard man merely as a link in the infinite cosmic evolution in which there are lower as well as higher forms. So it just makes sense to me that, like all life, evolves and adapts to its surroundings, that cycle of growth is happening on a spiritual level as well. So I'm going to leave you with this. I had never heard this before, but this is what is carved on Benjamin Franklin's headstone. The body of B. Franklin, printer, like the cover of an old book, its contents torn out and stripped of its lettering and gilding, lies here, food for worms. But the work shall not be lost, for it will, as he believed, appear once more in a new and more elegant edition, corrected and improved by the author. To me, the idea of reincarnation seems much more cosmically justified than the idea of heaven and hell, where this is an eternal realm that goes on forever and ever, but you've got one little life, and if you get it wrong, then you burn in hell forever. Or, honestly, not much better than that, is the idea that you go to heaven, a city of gold, where you sing praises to God for eternity. You ever had a song stuck in your head and singing it over and over? Yeah, let's do that for eternity. Also, a city of gold. Really? That is the most man-made concept that I have ever heard. Like God created all matter and all life just for gold. That's an invention of people who love money more than anything else. Yet the Western world has adopted their religious beliefs above all these others, like what we're talking about here, because of the Catholic Church, the universal church. Their whole goal was to unify all the religions for more secular power. Anyway, I've got a lot more to say about that subject, but we'll get into it later. Ruckus literally just drug one of my boots in here telling me it's time to go for a walk. That last one was last night. This is the next morning I'm finishing this. But my idea of heaven would be much closer to me and Ruckus exploring endless mountains for eternity instead of living in some damn city of gold. They say the love of money is the root of all evil, but the Western world has adopted the religious beliefs of people that love money. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. Static out. Yep, Ruckus heard that. He knows what static out means. It's time to go. Later.